All right, so I am now putting the pieces of my head reference together, and I can decide how much to use. So I was thinking of maybe using the snout and the tip of this, the mouth, the tongue. So I'm going to duplicate and make my own little reference for that. Bring that down. Warp it, play with it. See how that might work instead of the tip of the anteater. I kind of like how I can even make it a little bit thicker at the tip there. It's a little too turned though. So I can try to play with warping and perspective. To get it to feel a little more dimensional and wrap around a little more. So you have a lot more freedom with this reference, especially if you have a plan you're working with. And I think ultimately I'll probably just get rid of that nostril. I kind of like the nostril, so we'll see. Okay, so that might be one aspect of that reference I use. The other might be the eye. So I grab more than I need, duplicate it, I move it into place, and I transform it to my purpose. Now a big eye is better than a small eye. You want every choice you make, every design choice, to have impact on the overall design. Nothing should just be decorative or wasted. And then I can just do some rough erasing out. So I have a 100% opacity brush eraser. I'm just going to experiment with roughly cutting it out. I think it looks weird to have that little tongue sticking out though. Notice I'm not yet trying to do anything to match the color or the texture. All right. And because I have the mouth there, I might try this last little bit. See if the tongue works underneath. No, it just is distracting, so I'm going to delete that. All right, so I've got that part of the head kind of worked out. I can move these other pieces to the side, I can turn them off. Now I need like the horned lizard part, and this is the part I'm most excited about, these horns here. And it's just like collaging. Do a rough cutout. Try to get as much overlap as possible. I can add to my selection by holding down Shift. I can subtract from it by holding down Option. Gosh, I just like a whole lot of that. Duplicate what you want. You can use Command right bracket to move a layer up through the order, because I need it on top, or you can just click and drag it up through the order. And in order to figure out how to place it, I'm going to take the opacity down. I'm going to line up the eye. And see if that can be an effective strategy. Okay, now I want to take it back up to 100%, and I'm going to start erasing away from it. I think I'll transform it just a little bit more, warp it, just tuck this side in, make sure that eye is nice and bold. I want to try to use those spikes as well if I can. So I've got very different colors going on. And I've got a few different eyes going on. A lot of similarity. So for instance, I could try this. If I just like the lighting and the kind of intensity of this eye, I could copy that. Make sure I'm on the right layer. So duplicate that and then move that on top that reference. It gives me something to play with. So the narrow slit eye is kind of nice too. All right. Now these big frilly horns, how can that be useful? Kind of at this angle, maybe warped, pushed into the right perspective. I wish those background ones weren't so out of focus, though. So maybe I actually need to flip this one. Oh yeah, I can kind of see how this could work. All right. And now I'm going to use Command left bracket to move it down through the layers. And now I'm getting a pretty cool head assembly. Lots of different textures and things to work with. Lots of overlap for me to work with. And obviously a lot of work to clean up later. I'm going to start by just cutting this out. I don't want all that really sharp, out of focus stuff to impact my design. Now my sketch is getting completely overwhelmed here. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you get excited about the different directions your idea is moving in. And that's why I say you want to spend some time assembling the head. Because it will help you make a lot of decisions coming up. All right, so yeah, I'm liking this. There's something there. Now because I've gone a little thicker on this part, I need to go a little bit thicker on this part, going down to the snout. And that's where I might go back to some reference. Or that might be a good use of this. Let's flip this horizontally, let's angle it. Let's move it down, underneath. Command left bracket will move it down through the layers. Try lining up the eye. Let's warp it. Stretch out that lower jaw a little bit. There we go. So I know that's underneath to help me out. I'll use an eraser for the time being. So I'm not trying to do anything too refined yet. I'm trying to leave lots of different textural room for overlap. I am trying to get a solid plan. Of what elements will combine to make this head. I've got a double row of spikes here, kind of spikes around the eye, spikes at the back. And I'll decide, I actually probably don't need these ones at all. But I'll leave my options open. Okay, so now if I have the head assembly, this is kind of a new lesson. Just using the ridge of the eye there. Make that a little bit more believable. Now I can group all those layers together. So this is layer organization. And we didn't need to do this with the landscape because we didn't have that many layers, that many different elements. But with this, even with just the head, I have a lot of different layers and references going on. So what I'm going to do is turn off my background layer, turn off my sketch, and turn off any layers that aren't actively making my head assembly. And I can do that with the Auto Select Move tool. So these ones I'm not using. I'm just going to turn them off. I'm going to keep them all there for now. I'm going to go to the very top layer. And then instead of making a new layer, click on the folder icon, and that will group them. I'm going to name that group the head. Then I'm going to take everything except for my bottom sketch and background layer and hold down Shift and select all of those layers, both the ones that are turned on and off, something like 20 layers, and then drag and drop them into the head folder, which allows me very easily to just turn the head on and off even though there are multiple layers. It also allows me to auto-select by group and just move the whole thing anywhere I want. So now I can turn my sketch on and my background on, and I can move this head into place. And when it's time to put all the car parts together, I can actually just take the head grouping and collectively shrink it and angle it and put it into place. I like things to be a little bit bigger than they need to be to start with, though. So that's still a little bit bigger than it needs to be, but it shows me how it's going to work. And that's done through creating a layer grouping. So I still have all those individual layers I can play with, and I'll need to fine-tune it. But it's all under this one group. So for right now, I'm just going to move that off to the side. I can even just turn it off, but this is a good time to save my work. So File, Save As. It's no longer just a sketch. This is my full assignment, Creature Composite. Or you can call it Creature Collage, or Fantasy Creature. Make sure you have your name. And I'm going to save it to the desktop as a Photoshop format, which we'll want to do anyway because it has all the layers. All right, you can even give certain aspects a color by right-clicking around the eye. So the head's important, I'll make that red. And I'll just turn that off for now, but I know it's there, I know it's made. Now, let's work on something like the neck and body and see how I can get that to work with the head in a believable way. And I have to go back to reference for that.